Hello to the pointers, thank you for joining me again and welcome to any new viewers. Now in the speaking paper of the Cambridge English exams, so the B2 first, the C1 Advanced and the C2 Proficiency, you're going to need to converse with a partner in the collaborative tasks and the discussions. Now this will inevitably involve agreeing and disagreeing. So it's a good idea to go into the exam with a few options in order to avoid repetition. So in this video I'm going to give you 5 expressions for agreeing and 5 expressions for disagreeing with your partner. Now the first thing I should say, and it may seem obvious, but agree and disagree are verbs in English. So we can say something like I agree with you or I disagree with you. But we cannot say, and we must not say, I am agree with you or I am disagree with you. Now, as I said, that may seem obvious, but I promise it's a very common mistake that my students make at all levels, really. And if you make this mistake in the exam, the examiner will just fail you immediately for the whole exam. They'll just close their books, get up and walk out and say you failed. Well, obviously that's an exaggeration, but you really want to try to avoid making that mistake. So remember, I agree, I disagree. The second thing I want to say is that when you agree with someone, you can be quite emphatic, because it's nice to agree, it's good, it's positive. So you can be a little bit exaggerated or very emphatic. But when you disagree, you have to be a little bit more diplomatic, because you don't want to risk offending the other person or creating an uncomfortable situation. So as we'll see in the examples, the expressions for agreeing are quite emphatic, the expressions for disagreeing are more diplomatic. Now, a very simple way of agreeing quite emphatically is just to say 100%. Now, of course, the whole expression, the whole sentence would be, I agree with you 100%. But often in modern English, we don't say the full expression, it's not necessary, just say 100%. So if your partner says, we need to reduce our carbon footprint, you could say 100%. So just to show you're agreeing completely with what your partner is saying. Another similar option, number 2, is absolutely. Again, it's very emphatic, absolutely. So if your partner says something you agree with, you just say absolutely. You can exaggerate with the intonation. Again, because you're agreeing, it's okay to exaggerate, because it's nice, it's all good, you're not offending anyone. Again, similar with number 3, you say I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So it seems a bit of an exaggeration. I literally couldn't agree more, but it's a very common expression in English. And you can combine it with number 2. You could say, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Again, very emphatic, but that's what we do. And the 4th option is spot on. Spot on. So this is when somebody says something quite particular that you really agree with. It's the point they have made, that precise point they have made is exactly the right thing to say. So spot on, you've got it, spot on. Again, quite similar with number 5, but number 5 is an idiom, an idiomatic expression, which again is very common, but you have to be careful how you use it. Like with any idioms, you need to use the right vocabulary. And it's, you've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. So we use this when your partner, the person you're speaking with, says something very specific that is completely right, is something you completely agree with. So it's not just the general idea of what they're saying, it's not their beliefs or the idea, it's something that you have identified in what they have said that is exactly right. So you have hit the nail on the head, the nail on the head, so you can imagine you have a nail, a hammer, you haven't missed the nail, you've hit it right on the head. You've completely got it exactly right. Okay, so now let's look at some options for disagreeing. So as I said, you need to be a little bit more diplomatic when disagreeing, because you don't want to offend your partner or create a bad feeling. So the first option you have is to say, I take your point, but. I take your point, but. So that's a very English way of disagreeing, because you're saying, I take your point. That sounds like you're agreeing. But the but word is very important. It means a lot, this but. It signals to the listener, your partner, that you're going to say something different. So it's nice to say, I take your point, that's fine, but, and then you disagree. And the second option you have is to say, that's not exactly how I see it. So that's not exactly how I see it. Again, that's basically saying I see it very differently. It's a diplomatic, a soft way of disagreeing. So that's not exactly how I see it. Another very nice and common polite way to disagree is to say, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. So this is perhaps a little bit more direct than the last two examples, but it's still very polite because you say, I beg to differ. You're not risking any sort of arguments. You're just giving your opinion. I beg to differ. The next option you have is a little bit more emphatic. So you can say, I totally disagree. I totally disagree. That's quite emphatic. So you might want to prefix that by saying, sorry, but. So sorry, but I totally disagree. So that takes the edge off it a little bit. It softens it a little, but it's definitely stronger and more emphatic than the first three options. And the last option is an expression you can use when you realize that you're just not going to agree. There's no way that you're both going to have the same opinion about the subject. And that's fine. In the exam, you don't have to agree. You have to try to agree. You have to negotiate in some way to come to an agreement. But if in the end you don't, then you can say this expression. I think we'll have to agree to disagree. I think we'll have to agree to disagree. So that's quite a nice way. We're agreeing to disagree, so really we're disagreeing, but it's a polite, indirect way to disagree. Okay, I hope that helps you. Hit the like button if you found that useful, and don't forget to check out all my other videos. I have lots to help you with the Cambridge English exams now, so don't forget to subscribe because I'm going to be making many more in the future. Okay, see you again soon. Bye.